We've got a great program tonight. Nothing but heavy hitters and the best for you. None other than Erin Molan, Joe Hildebrand. Mark Latham is here, along with Megan Kelly in the United States. But let's follow on from our conversation last night in Toowoomba. Thank you to everyone who watched around the country and everyone who turned up at the Cube there in Toowoomba. As I said last night, I'll repeat it here. Over 4 and a bit years of the Our Town project, we have done the show from Broome to Launceston, from Mackay to all other parts of the country. And people do not like talking down their area. So when people in a regional area say they've got a problem, it's time to pay attention. And they've got one hell of a problem right now, of course, when it comes to youth crime. Again, thank you to everyone who was brave enough to tell us their stories. Plenty of people wanted to tell us, but literally didn't go on camera because they were afraid of the retribution. If you could look the Premier in the eye, you got 5 minutes of her time. Give me the both barrels you'd give her.
Okay, Anna, you need to start listening to the community.
I feel like I'm being attacked for wanting to be safe in my home, for my grandkids to feel safe.
3 break-ins, and we're now living in fear because we've just got to do whatever we can to make sure they go next door.
They tried every door, every window, cut fly screens, tried to get into the kids' bedrooms. They were determined to get into that house to steal those 2 cars, and after 3 hours they achieved their goal.
In order to be able to sleep at night, I actually have a baseball bat under the bed.
The only way I can describe it is pure terror. I mean, I was a mess, I didn't know whether my husband was dying before my eyes.
Young women in particular, elderly people are petrified at the moment. They feel vulnerable.
Youth crime's real, it's not made up, and it's life-changing for the people who are the victims. We gave you all of the numbers last night. Now, I knew that there would be the inevitable reaction from the left wing of the media. I expected on Monday night on Media Watch, but it has already begun. In the Brisbane Times newspaper, which is owned by the Channel 9 group, they have an online website and they've decided to go straight there, and they did today. Power and the Passion, why youth crime drives Queensland crazy. Now, they begin by stating facts. This masthead, working off a small slice of raw data, found the number of juvenile offenders in January rose by more than 6,000 on January last year, and almost 5,000 comparing to December 21 to 22. So the data is exactly the same data we told you last night. However, they say that there's been a bigger increase in adult crime. But of course, you have to go and find the local lefty academic who says it's all just a fever dream, it's all made up, it's all hype and BS. Now, this bloke, who is an associate professor, Paul Williams, and of course he's not a criminologist, he's a politics analyst at Griffith University, he says, when fevers are running so high, you cannot win an election just on relying on science, because the people aren't interested in the science of criminology. So put simply, all of these numbers, it's all just a fever dream. Williams then said that youth crime, this is unbelievable, right? Youth crime also played into the mindset of the folk devil about wayward young people. They were among outsiders to be feared, along with southerners, socialists, drug users, or whatever. And then we get to the point that is always made when we start to make a point that can't be ignored. It's all a News Corp thing. They decided to include an image of this program, the front pages of the newspapers that told the story of youth crime. All of it just a giant attempt by those of us who work for this company to keep you scared, as opposed to the reality of reporting on what has changed all over the country, but certainly has changed in Queensland. Their own data telling you that there are more young offenders than there were 12 months ago. And I mentioned who owned the Brisbane Times, Channel 9. So what's their level-headed coverage on all of this?
This is 9 News Queensland.
Good evening. Queensland is in the grips of an exceptional crisis, with youth crime posing a threat to public safety, according to an extraordinary admission from the Palaszczuk government.
Tonight, a raft of new laws is being ushered in to change how our state deals with violent teenage criminals caught offending time and again. I love the lefty Jedi mind trick. This is not the cost of living crisis that you're living through.
This is not the youth crime that you think it is. When the data, let alone the human beings who are there to tell you the stories, are willing to tell the stories. Now watch, it'll be The Guardian tomorrow. As I say, it'll be Media Watch on Monday, but I'm sorry. We looked those people in the eye and we've been telling their stories for a long time, and we'll continue to do it. And I don't care what they throw our way. It means we're making a point that is uncomfortable to what they want the agenda to be. Oh, and by the way, while we're dealing in facts, today, thank you, the Australian Bureau of Statistics dropped a report literally titled Crime Victimisation in Australia. And in the financial year of 21 to 22, think about this, 386 people in Australia experienced a physical assault. Seriously, 386,000. 441,000 people experienced face-to-face threatened assault. So what? We're up to 700, 800,000 people in a country of 25 million. 194,000 houses were broken into. 374,000 households experienced malicious property damage. But it's all just made up. Please. In the real world, people are hurting. People are scared, and they have every right to demand punishment for the people who are doing that. Do we want an endless cycle of people going into youth detention, going to a version of criminal TAFE and setting themselves off onto a horrible life? No, of course not. But the idea that all of it is just being pumped up so we can get you to watch the telly or buy the paper is garbage. And you know it, which is why we'll keep talking about it. Meantime, what about this out of New South Wales, the number of police that are thinking about getting out of the service? Now, remember when we talked about America, this happened because of defund the police. Well, in Australia, it's happening because of PTSD, it's happening because of trauma, and I have no doubt it's happening because the good men and women of the police forces of this country do the hard work, go and find them, send them to court, and then a judge turns around and gives them a cuddle and a goodbye. The New South Wales police sources reveal exclusively to News Local today that more than 6,000 officers, or 35% of the force, 35% of the New South Wales police force has sought financial advice about payouts, while 2,500 have put in their formal papers to say, I am out. Again, the real world. And to the men and women of the police force, whether it be the federal or the state, or the people who work on the front lines as the paid security people, we see you. And I get it. You experience people on their worst possible day, either as a victim or as a person who has committed crime. That's your normal day. I just want to say on the behalf of those of us that thankfully don't have to ring 000 every day, don't have to ring Crime Stoppers every day, thank you. What you give up in terms of the time you miss with your families in your 12-hour shifts, the risk that goes to your life, let alone to your emotional stability, can never be taken for granted, and we don't. Those of us that are the extreme majority, the normal people, thank you for what you do. We say that every day as well.